Welcome back to This is Kings from the University of King's College in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We're the podcast that explores all things Kings. Today, we're continuing this season's survey of the programs at the college. My guest is the director of our MFA in Nonfiction and Fiction, Gillian Turnbull. Hi, Gillian.
Hello.
The MFA just celebrated its 10th anniversary in grand style last year.
Yeah.
How did this program come about?
It was a project started by Stephen Kimber, who was a journalism professor here at King's. And he went away to do his MFA himself at Goucher College in the States. And he loved what he experienced there, which was a low-residency model. It meant he could still be here and working while completing the MFA and writing a book. And so he approached Don Sedgwick, who was somebody who was, well acquainted with the publishing industry, let's say. He'd been through a lot of different positions and knew a lot of people in the industry and was a mover and a shaker. And so together they came up with this model for an MFA here that drew on Don's publishing contacts and experience and drew on Stephen's teaching experience and knowledge of journalism and creative nonfiction specifically. So they put that together in the MFA format in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, I'm a grad. I was the inaugural year, so I do know a little bit about it. Although I think we were the guinea pigs and things have evolved in many ways with experience and so on.
Sure.
But there are so many creative writing programs all over the country and in the U.S. What would you say is different about the King's MFA?
That's a good question. And I often have kind of four key things I tell people. So one is the fact that it's low residency. So that means that you can be mid-career, you can be raising a family, you can be retired, and it welcomes you in because your life circumstances aren't necessarily conducive to you moving to Halifax to do a degree. So that's one big thing. You can do it from somewhere else. Another is our focus on publishing. So we have an equal amount of creative writing instruction and instruction on the world of publishing and how that looks and how to navigate that as an author because it's complex today. It requires a lot of work on the author's part. The third is the mentorship. So a close relationship with somebody who oversees your manuscript and the opportunity to work with several different mentors as the manuscript develops. And the fourth big thing is our community. We love to hang out together, and we continue to hang out together after we graduate, and that includes me because I'm also a grad of the program.
Oh my gosh, that's right, 2 grads sitting here talking about the MFA. You mentioned the low residency. How do you think that affects who becomes an MFA student at King's?
I think it opens it up considerably because we do get a lot of questions from people saying, I work full time and I don't know if I can fit this in. I really want to write a book, but, it's not like I'm going to get 2 years off from my job to do so. And we say, come on down. It really, I think, makes it a lot more accessible and also for people who just can't afford to travel or relocate because of cost barriers. They have that opportunity to stay at home. The only time that we are together is in June, and we're together for 10 days on the Halifax campus, and the rest of our program is online. So, it makes it a lot easier for people to participate regardless of life circumstances.
So both the fiction and the nonfiction cohorts have this residency for those 10 days, but separately mostly?
They are together on campus, so they're here at the same time, but they have separate lectures,
Mm-hmm. I'm amazed at the range of ages in an MFA student. I know some of our journalism undergrads have gone directly to the MFA, but then I know there are people in their 80s sometimes.
Yeah.
Who are the people that you're meeting through this?
Yeah, right off the top of my head, I think of Bill Sullivan. I almost forgot his name, who I think was our oldest graduate. I think he was around 83 when he graduated, which is amazing. And he published his book. It's people from all walks of life coming from, You know, a lot of people come from kind of the professional realm. Maybe they're doctors or working in social work or healthcare in other ways. Maybe they're academics and they want to write a book that's a little more accessible to a broader audience. And as you say, some are coming directly out of undergrad and they have an idea for a book and they want to make it happen. So yeah, I think in my year, our youngest person was 22 and our oldest person was 81.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from all over the country and beyond.
Yeah. Right now we have a student in the UK. We have another student in Korea. And they are signing on to our Zoom seminars, and it's really late at night for them or really early in the morning, but they're committed and they're able to do it from that location. So some are international students, but a lot of people are Canadians who have moved elsewhere for one reason or another, and they still want to do a Canadian degree. So yeah.
And lots of folks from Ontario, BC, Alberta, like across the country.
Yeah, and they all have their own little communities. Like out in BC, there's a big writers community out there who gets together, both alumni and current students. They like to hang out and form their own little writing groups. But yeah, I mean, people from the north too. We're starting to see more students coming from that region. Lots from Alberta, lots from Ontario. Yeah.
You talk about the limited residency, but beyond that, how does the program work?
So you come in June, and the residency is your first component of the program. So you're on campus for 10 days, you meet everybody, you're in class, and that is your class, right? So that is all the material you're going to get to set you up for the fall term. Basically, it's, 8 hours of class a day. And you do that for 10 days, and then you go off for the summer, and you have the summer to work on your materials as you wish. So you can get ahead on your manuscript or your assignments. And then we start a term in the fall that focuses on writing craft and working on your manuscript. And so you have assignments related to that. You're turning in portions of your manuscript. And then we have another residency in January that is online, and that kicks off our winter term. And that residency is focused on publishing. So we bring in guests from the publishing industry, students pitch their books, they talk to professionals, agents and editors, people like that. And then It
was terrifying, as I recall.
Yes.
Some real names in the business, both from the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah. So we have guests from New York who are coming from the top publishing firms in New York and from Toronto. And we started to open that up a bit more. So we also this year had some guests from Vancouver and across Canada and a little bit broader reach in the U.S. as well. And coming from all kind of perspectives in the industry. So sometimes we get smaller independent book publishers, but sometimes we get the big houses in too. And yeah, you're talking about your book with those guests. It's pretty intimidating, but also really fun. Yeah.
And great experience.
Oh, yeah. And then after that, everybody kicks off into a semester learning about publishing and doing assignments related to that and continuing with their manuscripts with their mentors. And then we repeat the whole cycle in June again, and you do it for another year.
There was a time that you had to have a contract with your mentor for what you were going to produce. And how close is that relationship now?
It's very much the same. So you're writing approximately 3 chapters or 15,000 words each term, and you do still have that contract with your mentor. So you will do typically 3 submissions of 5,000 words, send it off to your mentor. They have about a week to read it and get you some feedback, and then you meet with them and you talk about the progression of your writing, and it becomes a very close relationship. They get to know your writing very well, and they have a really good sense of where your book is going and how to guide that development. And the nice thing is, so first-year students, they will study with a mentor for the full first year. But then when they come back in the second June, they work with a new mentor. So that new mentor is offering a different lens on the manuscript. And by the time you're done, you can have up to 3 perspectives on your manuscript if you work with 3 different mentors. Some people choose to stay with one of their first 2 when they do their final term. But I loved having those different perspectives on mine. It was so helpful because they just see different things and really make it a richer experience. Yeah,
different mentors have different areas of expertise, really, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're listening to This is Kings podcast, where we explore all things Kings. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and we do hope you'll follow us and like us. I'm Pauline Dakin. I teach in the School of Journalism, Writing, and Publishing here at the University of King's College, and my guest is the director of the Writing and Publishing side of the school, Gillian Turnbull. Gillian, the fiction program is newer, just about to graduate its second class. How's that all going in terms of numbers and projects?
It's growing really fast. I was kind of surprised. So our first cohort came in 2023, and we had, I think, 20 or 21 students. and they were a very close-knit group, as first cohorts tend to be. You know this well.
It's true.
Yeah, and by the second year, we had grown a little bit, but this third cohort is now almost at 30 students. And based on what we're seeing with admissions right now, that's going to be a higher number next year. And to be honest, I'm not surprised. I think the world is such that everybody wants a little escapism right now. Mm-hmm. And so while it might be tempting to write on creative nonfiction topics, and we still have a very strong creative nonfiction side, I do think there's a little bit of a tendency in our applicants right now to think, maybe I'll just make some things up, get into a world that is imaginary and fun and a little free from what we're having to think about right now. Mm-hmm. And so we're starting to see things skew a little bit more towards fiction. It's very much the same progression through the degree. They have much the same experience. There are some slight differences around how you pitch to publishers, how you frame your query, that kind of thing. So fiction students are learning about those specifics, but otherwise, it's a very similar experience in both sides of the degree.
Mm-hmm. So producing some escapism, but I would think also exploring some very relevant and current issues in a fiction way, right? Themes.
Yes, exactly. And I think, there's a lot of fantasy writing, speculative writing happening in our students' work. And I think what those genres allow students to do is kind of imagine the real world circumstances we're in now playing out in a way where we can kind of tackle it more truthfully or more creatively. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about heavy things like climate change and authoritarianism and marginalization.
Oh, those little things.
Yeah, those little things. Fiction offers so many opportunities to really get creative with it and think about how we can make the world better. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Our provincial government here in Nova Scotia is concerned with what students are learning in universities and wants to see more graduates who are job ready. What does that mean for the MFA program?
I think our students have always been job ready, and it's a bit of a complex issue because so many of our students, most of them really, have had or are in the midst of very strong careers, and they want to take this break to add to those careers. So, I think what the MFA can do is it can raise their profile in their respective disciplines for sure, but it opens up a new avenue for income for a lot of them. So obviously book publishing is the number one way you would do that as a writer. But we've seen so many of our graduates go on to start festivals, to work in bookstores, to work in publishing houses, and then, of course, to teach, because the MFA is what we call a terminal degree, which means to teach at a university level. All you need is the MFA. You don't need a PhD. And so many of our students have come back and worked in our program and taught new students, and they've gone on to other universities and colleges and taught there as well. So I think, it's hard. I will say for sure it is hard to make a living as a writer. Often we're doing what's called the income bouquet because all, opportunities are sort of part-time in nature. But you can string together a really nice and interesting and productive writing life with those different streams of income, and many of our graduates do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are there, certainly this program has been a big success story at King's in the last decade, but are there challenges as you are growing and evolving? It sounds as though you certainly contribute to the creative economy and so on, but what are the challenges of a program that is growing so quickly?
I think the big one is accessibility. So even though the low residency model is really great for people in different life scenarios, I think we also want to make sure that we're reaching communities who historically haven't had access to university education. And that's going to be my real focus over the next couple of years, thinking about how to expand the MFA beyond just MFA offerings and offering more non-credit workshops, perhaps some kind of certificate program, kind of these micro credentials that allow people to be part of our community without committing to the cost and the time of a full MFA degree, because I think there's so much, opportunities for rich storytelling for other kinds of writing that don't necessarily look like a full book, that we can give people opportunities to do. So, but that's always a case of time and resources, and that's what I'm trying to find to make that happen.
Always, yeah. Am I allowed to say that there is a swirling program out in the future somewhere that will soon get pulled down to earth?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I sure can, yeah. So we're calling it an MFA in scripted storytelling because we initially thought it would be screenwriting, but that is a bit of a limiting idea. So we want it to be open enough for people to think about other forms. So could that be video games down the road? Could it be playwriting? Could it be podcasting? Could it be oral storytelling that takes on a scripted form and a performance aspect? So yeah, I'm hoping that we will have our first cohort come in 2027. All things, going our way, that could happen. And it's a very exciting proposition. I mean, we have a huge film industry here in Nova Scotia, and what they've long noted is that we don't have a cohort of writers on site, that they're often going to Ontario and Toronto to write scripts and then coming back to film here. So we want to make use of the talent here and get people anchored in Nova Scotia and make that happen. Yeah.
And a natural fit. I'm sure you've had some folks publish who have gone on to have some kind of a film or television adaptation from their book.
Yes, exactly. Some students will come out and get an agent and get a publishing deal and right away have their material optioned. And that includes you.
It does. I wasn't, necessarily trying to go there, but yeah. And there's another sort of way of contributing to that whole world of storytelling.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah.
You kind of mentioned this, but I really want to talk more about this incredibly active alumni of the MFA. What are some of the ways that former students and mentors and instructors stay in touch and sort of stay active with the program?
Well, because we're scattered all over, it can be hard to do, and yet everyone makes it happen. So if I might, I'll just use myself as one example.
Good.
When I was in the program, I started a writing group with some of my friends. We were all at the time in Toronto, so we met monthly. Then the pandemic hit and we met weekly. We continue to meet weekly 10 years later. We put a book together and we invited all sorts of other King's contributors to the volume. And so many people are doing that. Others
That's Bad Writer. Or sorry,
Bad Artist.
Bad Artist.
Yes, that's the title of the book. Yeah. And so I just heard from a student today who said she's thinking of doing the same thing with some writers in her cohort. And so we know these writing groups are happening in local communities. Sometimes they're happening online. But then you see this kind of broader support. So there are students who write book reviews of every book that's published by MFA alumni.
Yes.
There are students who go to bookstores and pull out books by our alumni and make sure they're facing the front so that they're selling more copies. There's people who are working in bookstores and making sure that our books are in stock, hiring each other for teaching and festival opportunities. It's a very vigorous, active, supportive community, and it's wonderful to see. Yeah, and coming back. So we have a writing conference now, and many of our alumni are coming back to present at those conferences and see each other again. It's wonderful.
It is.
Yeah.
World dominance is just around the corner, right?
Pretty much, yeah. That's my plan.
So I want to give you a minute to brag.
Yeah. So we're now over 90 books published out of the program. That some of those books are second, third, or fourth books by our graduates, which is amazing. Just heard about another book deal yesterday. It's just incredible how often I hear good news from our alumni. But I wouldn't say it's just books. People are learning journalistic skills. They're learning how to pitch pieces while they're in the program, and they're taking excerpts of their books or ideas they have around their books, and they're pitching them to magazines, newspapers, journals, other publications, and seeing great success with that. So we have many people who have been nominated for and won national magazine awards and similar kind of high profile accolades and
book awards.
And book awards. Yeah. It's really incredible to see the success of our graduates. Just this year we had someone win the Edna Stabler Award, and that was a second book of one of our graduates. So it's not it's not like you come here and then you kind of stop after the MFA. It kind of drives you to keep doing things and to get your work into the world, and that supportive community really helps that too.
Yeah. You must feel like kind of a proud midwife.
I do. Really, it's funny you say that, because I used to be so focused on my own writing and who's Gillian Turnbull as an author and all this stuff, and I don't think about it that much anymore. All I think about is who's here and making great art and writing great books. That I just want to make sure I facilitate that as best I can. Yeah, and that makes me happiest.
Gillian, thanks so much for coming in to talk about this.
Thank you. It was so fun.
The mushrooming program of the MFA.
Yes.
Gillian Turnbull is the director of King's Masters of Fine Arts programs in nonfiction and fiction. Thanks for listening. If you are a King's alum or student or just interested in campus life, follow us and give us a like. We drop a new episode on all the usual streaming platforms roughly every month during the academic year. I'm Pauline Dakin. Thanks to my co-producer and technician, Mark Pinio, and thanks to you for listening. Something about Kings you'd like to hear about? Let us know. We're at kingspodcast@gmail.com. We'll talk to you again soon.